Hello everyone. In the beginning of the class, please pause the video and review the following problems first. After you finish doing the problem, you can continue the video and I will show you all the solutions in detail. Okay, let's review these problems together. First problem, ax to the power 4 minus 12x squared plus 4x. For factoring, we can first of all try to take out the greatest common factor. Look at a, 12, and 4. The greatest common factor is 4. That's the largest number that divides a, 12, and 4. Next, take out the common letters. Common letter is x. Lowest power is 1. So take out 4x. We take a divided by 4. I have 2. A divided by 4 is 2. X to the power 4 means there are 4x multiplied together. If I take out one of them, we have 3 more left here. Negative 12 divided by 4 is negative 3. X squared means there are 2x multiplied together. If I take out one of them, the other one left there. Last term. 4 divided by 4 is 1. There's only 1x. If I pull it out, there's no x left. And that's the final answer. Next, negative 6x to the power 3 minus 21x squared. When the first term is negative, when I pull out common factor, we have to pull out negative sign. So if the first term is negative, if the leading term is negative, when I factor, I need to pull out negative sign. Look at number 6 and number 21. The greatest common factor is 3. That's the largest number divides 6 and 21. The common letter is x, and we pick the lower power. Lower power is power 2. Now the first term, what's left? The first term, negative 6 divided by negative 3 is positive 2. X to the power 3 means there are 3x multiplied together. If I pull out 2 of them, there's one more left. Next term, negative 21 divided by negative 3, that's positive 7. Negative 21 divided by negative 3, that's positive 7. And x squared means there are 2x multiplied together. If I pull out 2 of them, there's no x left. So that's the final answer. Next, 6x to the power of 3 plus 2x squared minus 9x minus 3. When there are 4 terms, usually you can try to factor by grouping. When there are 4 terms, we can try to factor by grouping. If I group the first 2 terms together, then I want to take out the common factors. For 6 and 2, the greatest common factor is 2. That's the largest number that divides both of them. Common letter is x, and we pick the lower power. Lower power is power 2. What's left here? 6 divided by 2 is 3. X to the power 3 means there are 3x multiplied together. If I pull out 2 of them, there's one more left here. Second term, 2 divided by 2 is 1. X squared means there are only 2x multiplied together. If I pull out x squared, there's no x left. Next term, 9 and 3. For number 9 and number 3, the greatest common factor is 3. And there are no common letters. Since the first term is negative, I pull out negative sign. If I pull out negative 3, what's left here? Negative 9 divided by negative 3 is positive 3. Since I only take out number 3, x stays the same. For the next term, negative 3 divided by negative 3 is positive 1. Here we can see that 3x plus 1 is a common factor. I can pull it outside. If I pull out 3x plus 1, what's left is 2x squared minus 3. That's the final answer. Next, 12xy minus ax plus 9y minus 6. When there are 4 terms, usually we factor by grouping. Group the first 2 terms together, take out the common factor. For 12 and a, the greatest common factor is 4. That's the largest number divides both 12 and a. Common letter is x. Y is not common. If I pull out 4x, 12 divided by 4 is 3. There's only one x. If I pull out x, then there's no x left. Y stays the same. For the second term, a divided by 4 is 2. There's only one x. If I pull out x, then there's no x left. Second part. For 9 and 6, the greatest common factor is 3. That's the largest number that divides both 9 and 6. What's left? 9x divided by 3 is, 9y divided by 3 is 3y. 9 divided by 3 is 3. Delta y stays the same. Next, 6 divided by 3 is 2. Then here we can see that 3x minus 2 is common factor. 3x minus 2 is common factor. If I pull out 3y minus 2 is common factor. If I pull out 3y minus 2, what's left is 4x plus 3. If I pull out 3y minus 2, what's left is 4x plus 3. That's the final answer. Next, x squared minus 5x plus 4. When we try to factor a trinomial, if there's no leading coefficient, we can draw 2 parentheses. If there's no number in the front, we can draw 2 parentheses. Split x squared evenly. Split x squared evenly. Put it on a parentheses. Next, we try to find 2 numbers that multiply to be 4, add to be negative 5. Try to find 2 numbers that multiply to be 4 and add to be negative 5. The only possibility here is negative 4 and negative 1. When I multiply, I get 4. When I add the numbers, I get negative 5. Put these numbers in the parentheses. That's the final answer. Next, 4x squared minus 4x minus 3. This is a trinomial, and there is a leading coefficient. When there is a leading coefficient, we need to apply AC method. These 3 numbers, they are called A, B, C. A, B, C. Multiply AC together. 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. Multiply AC together. 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. Next, try to find 2 numbers that when we multiply, we get negative 12. When we add, we get negative 4. Try to find 2 numbers that when we multiply, we get negative 12. When we add, we get negative 4. Here we can try 6 and 2. 6 minus 2 is 4. 6 times 2 is 12. But we try to make negative 4 here. So we can try to use negative 6 and positive 2. When I multiply, I get negative 12. When I add the numbers, we get negative 4. So here, rewrite the middle term using these 2 numbers. The variable stays the same. Use these 2 numbers as the coefficient. Rewrite the middle term, use these 2 numbers. Then the variable stays the same. The variables stays the same. Last term stays the same. Now we have 4 terms. We can try to factor this by grouping. If I group the first 2 terms together and group last 2 terms together and factor, for the first 2 terms, 4x squared minus 6x, common factor is, for 4 and 6, common factor is 2. That's the largest number that divides both 4 and 6. common variable is x. If I pull out 2x, what's left here? 4x. 4 divided by 2 is 2. X squared means there are 2x. If I pull out one of them, the other one left here. Next, 6 divided by 2 is 3. There is only one x. If I pull out x, then there's no x left. For the second part, 2x minus 3. The only common factor between 2 and 3 is 1. The only common factor between 2 and 3 is 1. If I pull out 1, 2 divided by 1 is 2. X stays there. 3 divided by 1 is 3. Then we can see that here, 2x minus 3 is a common factor. 2x minus 3 is a common factor. If I pull out a common factor, if I pull out 2x minus 3, what's left is 2x plus 1. That's the final answer. Next, 6x squared plus 5x minus 6. When there is a coefficient in the front, we need to use AC method. So multiply AC. 6 times negative 6 is negative 36. Multiply AC together first. 6 times negative 6 is negative 36. Now we try to find two numbers that multiply to be negative 36, add to be negative 5. So let's write down all possibilities for 36. 36 I can try to write 1 times 36, 2 times 18, 3 times 12, 4 times 9, and 6 times 6. We try to add or subtract this number to make 5. The only possibility here is 9 minus 4 equal to 5. The only possibility here is 9 minus 4 equal to 5. Let's try to use 9 and 4. We want two numbers, like add to be positive 5. So you can try to use positive 9 and negative 4. When I add, I get positive 5. When I multiply, I get negative 36. So positive 9, negative 4 works. Keep the first term the same. Replace the middle term with using these two numbers. Positive 9x minus 4x. Variables must stay the same. And last term stays the same. Now we get 4 terms. We can factor by grouping. For the first two terms, for 6 and 9, take out the greatest common factor. For 6 and 9, the greatest common factor is 3. That's the largest number that divides both 6 and 9. Common letter is x. Lowest power is power 1. Then if I pull out 3x, what's left? Take 6 divided by 3, that's 2. X squared means there are 2x multiplied together. If I pull out one of them, the other one stays here. Second term, 9 divided by 3 is 3. There is only one x. If I pull out x, there's no x left. For the second half, for 4 and 6, for number 4 and 6, the greatest common factor is 2. That's the largest number that divides both 4 and 6. And there's no common factors. There's no common letters. There's no common letters. X is not common. There's no x here. Since the leading term is negative, when I factor, I need to pull out negative sign. Since the leading term is negative, when I factor, I need to pull out negative sign. What's left here? Negative 4 divided by negative 2 is positive 2. X stays the same. Then negative 6, negative 6 divided by negative 3 is positive 3. If I pull out 2x plus 3, that's a common factor. If I pull it outside, if I pull out 2x plus 3, if I pull out a common factor 2x plus 3, what's left is 3x minus 2. That's the final answer. Next, 15x squared minus 11x plus 2. 15x squared minus 11x plus 2. For any trinomial, if there's a leading coefficient, we have to apply AC method. So multiply AC together first. Here A times C, 15 times 2 is 30. 15 times 2 is 30. We try to find two numbers, then multiply to be 30, add to be negative 11. Let's write down all possibilities for 30 first. 30, I can write it as 1 times 30. Two times 15, or 3 times 10, or 5 times 6. We try to add and subtract numbers. The only possibility I can get 11 is 5 plus 6. So let's try 5 and 6. We try to make negative 11 here. So I can try to use negative 5 and negative 6. When I add the numbers, I get negative 11. When I multiply, I get positive 30. So negative 5 and negative 6 works. So keep the first term the same. Keep the last term the same. Rewrite the middle term using these two numbers. I write negative 5x, negative 6x. Use these two numbers as coefficient. Variables stays the same. For both terms, variables stays the same. Now we have 4 terms. I can factor by grouping. Now we have 4 terms here. Factor by grouping. If I group the first 2 terms together and take out a common factor, what do I get? For 15 and 5, the greatest common factor is 5. For 15 and 5, the greatest common factor is 5. That's the largest number that divides both 15 and 5. Common letter is x, and the lowest power is power 1. Then what's left? Take 15 divided by 5 is 3. X squared means there are 2x multiplied together. If I pull out one of them, the other one left here. Next, negative 5 divided by 5 is 1. It's negative 1. Negative 5 divided by 5 is negative 1. There's only one x. If I pull out x, then there's no x left. That's in the first half. For the second half, we also take out the greatest common factor. For number 6 and number 2, the greatest common factor is 2. That's the largest number that divides both 6 and 2. Common letter, there's no common letter because there's no letter here. So there's no common letter between these two terms. There's no common letters between these two terms. Since the first term is negative, I need to pull out negative sign. Then what's left here? Negative 6 divided by negative 2 is positive 3. X stays the same. Positive 2 divided by negative 2 is negative 1. Then here we can see that 3x minus 1 is a common factor. 3x minus 1 is a common factor. If I pull out 3x minus 1, what's left is 5x minus 2. If I pull out 3x minus 1, what's left is 5x minus 2. And that's the final answer. Next, 4x squared minus 25. 4x squared minus 25. This problem looks like the form of ax squared, a squared minus b squared. It looks like the difference of perfect squares. And this formula is a plus b times a minus b. This expression looks like this formula. So if I apply the formula, we can see that here. 4 is a perfect square. 4 is 2 squared. 2 times 2 is 4. S squared is x squared. X times s is s squared. So 4s squared can be rewritten as 2s squared in parentheses. 25 can be rewritten as 5 squared. If we try to match the formula, we can see that 2x represents a, Number 5 represents b. If I use the formula, I have a plus b times a minus b, which is 2x plus 5 times 2x minus 5. Next, 9 minus 49y squared. 9 minus 49y squared. If we try to match this formula, you can see that here. Number 9 is a perfect square. 3 squared is 9. 49 is also perfect square. 7 times 7 is 49. And y times y is y squared. 49y squared can be rewritten as 7y squared in parentheses. Then if we try to match the formula, 3 represents A, 7y represents B. Using the formula, we have A plus B times A minus B. So 3 plus 7y times 3 minus 7y. And that's the final answer. Number 11. 18x cubed minus 2y. Here we can see that 18 is not perfect square. We can use this formula directly. 18 is not perfect square. Also, number 2 is also not perfect square. We can use this formula directly. So here we can try to take out the common factor first. When we factor, always try to take out a common factor first. When we factor, take out a common factor first. For 18 and 2, the greatest common factor is 2. That's the largest number that divides both of them. And common letter is x. Pick the lowest power. Lowest power is power 1. If I pull out 2x, 18 divided by 2 is 9. X to the power 3 means there are 3x multiplied together. If I pull out one of them, the other two left here. Next, 2 divided by 2 is 1. There's only one x. If I pull out x, then there's nothing left, no x left. Now observe, does this match the formula? We can see that here, number 9 is 3 squared, it's a perfect square. 3 times 3 is 9. X squared is a perfect square. X times x is x squared. So I can write 9x squared as 3x squared. Number 1 can be rewritten as 1 squared. If we try to match the formula, we can see that 3x match A. Number 1 match B. So we have 3x plus 1 times 3x minus 1. If we use the formula, we have A plus B times A minus B, which is 3x plus 1 and 3x minus 1. And keep 2x the same. Don't forget 2x. Keep these 2x the same. That's the final answer. Next, 16x to the power 4 minus 1. If we observe the formula, we can see that 16 is a perfect square. 4 times 4 is 16. X to the power 4 is also perfect square. S squared times S squared is perfect is x to the power 4. S squared times S squared is s to the power 4. 4 times 4 is 16. S squared times x squared is s to the power 4. So the first term is a perfect square. For the second term, number 1 can be rewritten as 1 squared. That's also a perfect square. Then it matches this formula here. A squared minus b squared. If we use the formula, we have a plus b times a minus b. So we have 4s squared plus 1 times 4s squared minus 1. Now observe, are we done? When we have 4s squared plus 1, this is addition, it cannot be factor. The formula only works for subtraction. This is addition, and there's no common factor. There's no common factor between these two terms, so it cannot be factor. This is not factorable. It cannot be factored. There's no common factor. Look in the second half. We have subtraction here. 4s squared. 4 can be written as 2 squared. 2 times 2 is 4. S squared is x times x. S squared is x times x. So 4x squared can be rewritten as 2x squared in parentheses. Number 1 can be rewritten as 1 squared. So again, this is difference of perfect square. Imagine the formula here. Use the formula again. A squared minus b squared is a plus b times a minus b. Here 2x represent a. Number 1 represent b. We have 2s plus 1 times 2s minus 1. And keep the first term, keep the first parenthesis the same. Since it's not factorable, leave it the way it is. Second half is factorable, so factor the second half. This is the final answer. Next. (27x squared y squared minus 12y to the power 4). 27x squared y squared minus 12y to the power 4. So we can try to take out common factor first. They are not perfect squares. 27 is not perfect square. 12 is also not perfect square. We can't use this formula. If we can't use the formula, we need to take out a common factor. If we can't use this formula directly, take out common factor first. For 27 and 12, the greatest common factor is 3. That's the largest number that divides both numbers. 3 is the largest number that divides both 27 and 12. Common letter is y. Common letter is y. And for letter y, we pick the lowest power. Lowest power here is power 2. If I pull out 3y squared, what's left? 27 divided by 3 is 9. S squared stays the same, since we only take out y squared. S squared stays the same. If I pull out y squared, there's no y left. For the second half, 12 divided by 3 is 4. Y to the power 4 means there are 4 y's multiplied together. If I pull out 2 of them, the other 2 left here. Now observe. 9s squared. 9 is a perfect square. 3 times 3 is 9. S squared is a perfect square. X times x is s squared. So 9s squared can be rewritten as 3x squared. For the second half, number 4 is a perfect square because 2 times 2 is 4. Y squared is also perfect square because y times y is y squared. So 4y squared can be rewritten as 2y squared in parentheses. If we try to match the formula, we can see that 3x match y, 3x match a, 2y match b. So if we use the formula, we have a plus b times a minus b. So we have 3x plus 2y times 3x minus 2y. 3y squared stays the same. And that's the final answer. Next. X to the power 3 minus 2s squared minus 4x plus a. When there are 4 or more terms, we try to factor by grouping. When there are 4 or more terms, we try to factor by grouping. So here we have 4 terms. Factor by grouping. I can group the first 2 terms together and group the last 2 terms together. For the first 2 terms, take out a common factor. There's no coefficient in the front, so that means there are no common numbers. There's no coefficient in the front here, so that means there are no common numbers. For common letters, x is a common letter. We pick the lower power. Lowest power here is power 2. If I pull out s squared, what's left? x to the power 3 means there are 3x multiplied together. If I take out 2 of them, there's one more left here. For the second half, number 2 stays the same. If I pull out x squared, there's no x left. For the second half, take out a common factor first. For common factor between 4 and a is 4. That's the greatest common factor. Number 4 is the largest number that divides both 4 and a. Number 4 is the largest number that divides both 4 and a. Since the first term is negative, I need to pull out negative sign. Since the first term is negative, I need to pull out negative sign. If I pull out negative 4 from the first term, negative 4 divided by negative 4 is positive 1. X stays the same. For the second term, positive a divided by negative 4 is negative 2. And for any polynomial, if the coefficient is 1, usually we don't write 1. For any polynomial, if the coefficient is 1, we don't write 1. Here, 1x is the same as x. So remove 1. 1x is the same as x. Then we can see that here, x plus 2 is a common factor. X plus 2 is common factor. If I pull out s minus 2, what's left is s squared minus 4. If I pull out s minus 2, what's left is s squared minus 4. Now observe, are we done? Be very, very careful. Are we done? X minus 2, that cannot be factor. There's no common factor. That cannot be factor. S squared minus 4, be very careful. S squared is a perfect square. Number 4 is 2 squared. That's also perfect square. So imagine this formula. Imagine a squared minus b squared. Imagine the formula of perfect squares. Then use the formula. A squared minus b squared can be rewritten as a plus b times a minus b. So x plus 2 times s minus 2. And for the final answer, don't forget s minus 2 in the front. Now, again, be very, very careful for one more thing. Here, x minus 2 and s minus 2 looks exactly the same. X minus 2 and s minus 2 looks exactly the same. When they look exactly the same, we write x minus 2 squared times s plus 2. When they look exactly the same, we write s minus 2 squared times x plus 2. That's the final answer. Be very, very careful. When two factors look exactly the same, we write x minus 2 squared. When s minus 2 looks exactly the same, write x minus 2 squared. Be very, very careful. X plus 2 stays the same. And that's the final answer. Next. For x to the power 3 minus ax squared minus 12x. So for factoring, if there's a common factor, no matter how, if there's a common factor, we must pull out common factor first. For factoring, if there is common factor, we must always pull out a common factor first. What's the common factor here? Look at 4a and 12. The greatest common factor is 4. That's the largest number that divides all three numbers. So the greatest common factor is 4. Common letter is x. And lowest power is power 1. If I pull out 4x, what's left? I take 4 divided by 4, that's 1. X to the power 3 means there are 3x multiplied together. If I pull out one of them, we have s squared left. We have 2 more x left inside the parentheses. For the second term, 8 divided by 4 is 2. S squared means there are 2x multiplied together. If I pull out one of them, the other one left here. Next term, 12 divided by 4 is 3. there's only one x. If I pull out x, then there's no x left. And for polynomial, if the coefficient is 1, for any polynomial, if the coefficient is 1, we don't write 1. 1s squared is the same as s squared. So remove 1. 1s squared is the same as s squared. Then we can see that this is a trinomial. Inside the parentheses, this is a trinomial with no coefficient in the front. This is a trinomial with no coefficient in the front. So I can split x squared evenly, write 1x on each parenthesis. Then we try to find two numbers that multiply to be -3 and add to be -2. Try to find two numbers that multiply to be -3 and add to be -2. We can try to use 1 and 3. 3 minus 1 is 2. But we want to make -2 here. So we make +1, -3. +1 plus -3 is -2. +1 times -3 is -3. +1 times -3 is -3. Put these two numbers in the parentheses. +1 minus 3. +1 minus 3. And keep 4x the same. That's the final answer. That's the final answer. Next. X to the power 4 minus 3x minus 4. This is a trinomial and there's no leading coefficient. This is a trinomial and there's no leading coefficient. We can draw two parentheses. Split x to the power 4 evenly. I have x squared and s squared. If I split x to the power 4 evenly, I have s squared times s squared. Next, try to find two numbers that multiply to be -4, add to be -3. Try to find two numbers that they add to be -3 and they multiply to be -4. We can try 1 and 4. 1 times 4 is 4. Since I try to make -3 here, I can use +1 times -4. +1 times -4 is -4. And +1 plus -4 is -3. +1 times -4 is -4. +1 plus -4 is -3. So I can put these two numbers in the parentheses. +1, -4. Now be very careful. Are we done? Are we done? S squared plus 1. This is a perfect square. 1 is also a perfect square. But we have addition in the middle. It doesn't match this formula. For this formula, we must have subtraction in the middle. So the first part doesn't match this formula. It's not factorable. It doesn't match the formula and there's no common factor, so this part is not factorable. How about the second part? The second part, s squared can be written as x squared. X times s is s squared. Number 4 is a perfect square. 2 times 2 is 4. So number 4 can be rewritten as 2 squared. Now this matches the difference of perfect square. This matches the formula, difference of perfect squares. If I use the formula, x represents A, 2 represents B. If I use the formula, x represents A and 2 represents B. If I use the formula, I have A plus B times A minus B, x plus 2 times s minus 2, and leave the first part the same, s squared plus 1. If it's not factorable, leave it the same. If the first part is not factorable, leave it the same. So that's all we learned last class. Today we will study rational expression. When we have a polynomial divided by polynomial, the expression is called rational expression. only have a polynomial divided by polynomial, the expression is called rational expression. Look at the following example first. Simplify each of the following expressions. Simplify each of the following expressions. Look at the first example. 2x to the power 4 over y to the power of 3 divided by 10x squared y to the power 7. How do you simplify this expression? That's a polynomial divided by polynomial. It's called rational expression. How do you simplify this polynomial? Simplify the numbers first. When we simplify rational expression, simplify the numbers first. Look at 2 and 10. Common factor between 2 and 10 is 2. I can divide both numbers by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Next, simplify the letters. Simplify the letters. X to the power 4 and x to the power 2. Both top and the bottom contains x. Since the top has larger x, I keep x on the top. Subtract the power. Use larger minus smaller. Or take the top minus the bottom. 4 minus 2 is 2. Now, next, look at letter y. We have letter y on the top and the bottom. Since the bottom has larger power, we keep y on the bottom. Since the bottom has larger power, keep y on the bottom, and take the bottom power minus the top power. 7 minus 3 is 4. Always use the larger minus the smaller. So since x has larger power, I keep x on the top, and use the top power minus the bottom power. For letter y, since the bottom has larger power, I keep y on the bottom, take the larger power minus the smaller power. Then for the final answer, for any polynomial, if the coefficient is 1, we don't write 1. 1x squared is the same as x squared over denominator is 5y to the power 4. That's the final answer. Next, negative 6x squared times y over 15 x to the power 6 z squared. Negative 6x squared y over 15 times x squared z to the power 2. First of all, simplify numbers. Simplify the numbers first. Simplify the numbers first. Look at the number here. We have negative 6 divided by positive 15. Negative 6 divided by positive 15. Negative number divided by positive number, the answer is always negative. Negative number divided by positive number, answer is always negative. Let's simplify 6 and 15. For number 6 and number 15, I can divide both numbers by 3. For number 6 and number 15, I can divide both numbers by 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 15 divided by 3 is 5. Next, look at the numbers. We have common letter x. We have common letter x on the top and the bottom. Since bottom x, the x on the bottom has larger power. Since the x on the bottom has larger power, we keep x on the bottom. Then take the bottom power minus the top power. 6 minus 2 is 4. Then for y and z, we only have y on the top, so it cannot be simplified, leave it the same. For letter z, we only have z on the bottom, so it cannot be simplified. I leave it the same. And that's the final answer. We can't go any further. Nothing can be cancelled. That's the final answer. Next, 12x to the power 7, y to the power 2 times z over 18x y to the power of 3. 12x to the power 7 y to the power of 2 times c over 18x y to the power of 3. So if there's a number in the front, simplify the number first. For 12 over 18, I can divide both numbers by 6 first. For 12 over 18, I can divide both numbers by 6 first. 12 divided by 6 is 2. 18 divided by 6 is 3. So simplify numbers first. Now observe the letters. We have x on the top and the bottom. The top x has larger power, so keep x on the top. Then use the top power minus the bottom power. For x on the bottom, if there's no power, we assume the power is 1. So use the top minus bottom. 7 minus 1 is 6. For letter y, we have y's on the top and the bottom. But here, the bottom, y on the bottom has larger power. This y on the bottom has larger power. So I keep y on the bottom, take the bottom power minus the top power. 3 minus 2 is 1. And there's only one z on the top. That cannot be simplified. I leave it the same. There's only one z on the top. That cannot be simplified. I leave it the same. So for the final answer, if the power is 1, we don't write 1. We write 3y. If the power is 1, we don't write 1. So we have 3y on the bottom. On the top, we have 2x to the power 6 times z. That's the final answer. Next, let's look at something a little different. 4x times x plus 2 over x minus 2 times x plus 2. 4x times x plus 2 over x minus 2 times x plus 2. What can we do here? Observe this expression. On the top and the bottom, we can see that x plus 2 looks exactly the same. On the top and the bottom, we can see that x plus 2 looks exactly the same. So I can cancel x plus 2. If they look exactly the same, I can cancel this from top and the bottom. What's left? The final answer is 4x over x minus 2. I cancel x plus 2 from top and the bottom. What's left is 4x over x minus 2. And that's the final answer. Next. X squared times 2x plus 3 over 6x times 2x plus 1 times 2x plus 3. 10x squared times 2x plus 3 over 6x times 2x plus 1, 2x plus 3. This is a little harder than number 4. This is a little harder than the previous problem. What can we do here? This is a little harder. Observe this problem. We can see that 2x plus 3 looks exactly the same. 2x plus 3 looks exactly the same. So I can cancel 2x plus 3 first. If I cancel 2x plus 3, what's left is 10x squared on the top. If I cancel 2x plus 3, what's left is 10x squared on the top. On the bottom, we have 6x times 2x plus 1. Now we try to cancel. When we cancel, don't touch anything inside the parentheses. When we're doing cancellation, don't touch anything inside the parentheses. When we are doing cancellation, don't touch anything inside the parentheses. Look at what's outside the parentheses. 10x squared and 6x. I can try to simplify the numbers first. For 10 and 6, I can divide both numbers by 2, which I can make it 5 over 3. For 10 over 6, I can divide both numbers by 2, which I can make it 5 over 3. Now, they both contain x. The top x has larger power. So I keep x on the top. Then take larger power minus smaller power. Use larger power minus smaller power. 2 minus 1 is 1. And in general, if the power is 1, we don't write 1. X raised to power 1 is the same as x. On the bottom, don't forget 2x plus 1. This stays the same. So this is your final answer. 5x over 3 times 2x plus 1. That's your final answer. Number 6. X plus 3 squared over x plus 2 times x plus 3. Number 6, we have x plus 3 squared over s plus 2 times s plus 3. How can we simplify this expression? For this expression, when we see x plus 3 squared, that means I can write the numerator as x plus 3 times s plus 3. That's what x plus 3 squared means. Square means the same thing, same expression, multiplied by itself. So s plus 3 squared means s plus 3 times s plus 3. On the bottom, we have s plus 2 times s plus 3. Now we can see that here, s plus 3 on the top and the bottom looks exactly the same. I can cancel one from the top, one from the bottom. What's left is x plus 3 over s plus 2. And that's your final answer. Next, we have 2x plus 4 over 3x plus 6. What can we do for this problem? Nothing can be cancelled here. Nothing can be cancelled. So for this problem, we can try to factor first. If nothing can be factored, try to factor first. On the numerator, take out common factor. We can see that 2 is a common factor on the top and the bottom. 2 is a common factor for both terms on the top. 2 is a common factor. And that's the largest number that divides both 2 and 4. For 2x, if I take out 2, there's x left. For number 4, take 4 divided by 2, I get 2. The top is, if I factor pull out 2, I have 2 times x plus 2 on the numerator. On the denominator, take out common factor. I can pull out number 3. We can pull out number 3. If I pull out number 3, for 3x, if I pull out 3, there's x left. For number 6, 6 divided by 3 is 2. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Then we can see that on the top and the bottom, s plus 2 looks exactly the same. I can cancel s plus 2. What's left is 2 over 3. So usually for rational expression, if possible, we factor both numerator and denominator first. Then we do cancellation. In general, for rational expression, we factor first, then we do cancellation. Factor first, then do cancellation. Next example, 4x minus 12 over ax plus 16. So same thing. For rational expression, we factor first, then we do cancellation. Factor first, then do cancellation. 4x minus 12, what can we factor? For 4 and 12, the greatest common factor is 4. That's the largest number that divides both 4 and 12. First term is 4x. If I pull out 4, what's left is x. Second term, take 12 divided by 4 is 3. Divided by 4 is 3. On the bottom, for a and 16, greatest common factor is a. For number a and number 16, the greatest common factor is a. That's the largest number that divides both a and 16. If I pull out a, from ax, if I pull out a, what's left is ax. From ax, if I pull out a, what's left is x. For the second term, take 16 divided by a, I get 2. So they don't look the same, they are different. S minus 3 and s plus 2, they don't look the same, they are different. They cannot be cancelled. We leave it the way it is. Now, for number 4 and number a, I can divide both numbers by 4. For number 4 and number a, I can divide both numbers by 4. On the top, 4 divided by 4 is 1. On the bottom, a divided by 4 is 2. These two terms cannot be simplified. I leave x minus 3 and s plus 2 the same. For the final answer, if the coefficient is 1, we don't write 1. So I write x minus 3 on the top and 2 times s plus 2 on the bottom. For the final answer, write x minus 3 on the top and 2 times s plus 2 on the bottom. Next, 2sy plus xc over 6y squared plus 3yz. 2sy plus xc over 6y squared plus 3yz. What can we do here? For rational expression, always try to factor first. Then do cancellation. Let's factor the top first. If I want to factor the numerator, the only common factor here is x. On the numerator, the only common factor is x. If I pull out x from the first term, what's left is 2y. For the second term, if I pull out x, what's left is z. So I get x times 2y plus z. That's the numerator. On the denominator, if I try to pull out a common factor, for number 6 and number 3, greatest common factor is 3. That's the largest number that divides both 3 and 6. Common letter is y. And lower power for letter y, lower power is 1. So I pull out 3y on the bottom. If I pull out 3y on the bottom, 6 divided by 3 is 2. Y squared means there are 2 y's multiplied together. If I pull out one of them, the other one left inside. For the second part, 3 divided by 3 is 1. If I pull out y, z stays there. And we know that 1z is the same as z. So 3yz, if I pull out 3y, I have a z left here. Then we can see that here on the top and the bottom, 2y plus z looks exactly the same. 2y plus z looks exactly the same. I can cancel 2y plus z. If I cancel 2y plus z on the top and the bottom, what's left is x over 3y. And that's the final answer. Next. (6x squared minus 2sy over 18sy minus 6y squared. 6s squared minus 2sy over 18sy minus 6x squared. So for rational expression, we always try to factor first, then cancel the common factors. Always factor first, then cancel the common factors. On the top, if I factor, I can pull out 2x. 2 is the greatest common factor that divides both 6 and 2. Common letter is x. Common letter is x. And the lower power for letter x is power 1. If I pull out 6x, first term, 6 divided by 2 is 3. X squared means there are 2x multiplied together. If I pull out one of them, the other one stays there. So I get 3x. For the first one, I get 3x. For the second term, we have 2sy. If I pull out 2x, what's left is letter y. Second term, we have 2sy. If I pull out 2x, what's left is letter y. On the bottom, factor on the bottom, 18sy minus 6y squared. 18sy minus 6y squared. For 18 and 6, common factor is 6. That's the largest number that divides both 18 and 6. Common letter is letter y. And the lower power is 1. For letter y, lower power is 1. What's left? I take 18 divided by 6, which is 3. Then I pull out 1y. We have sy here. If I pull out 1y, we have x left. Next, 6 divided by 6 is 1. Y squared means there are 2 y's multiplied together. If I pull out one of them, the other one stays here. And we know for any polynomial, if the coefficient is 1, we don't write 1. Here, 1y is the same as y. Then observe, we can see that here, 3x minus y looks exactly the same. 3x minus y looks exactly the same. I can cross it out. If I cross out 3x minus y, what's left is 2x over 6y. Now, are we done? Can we cancel anything out? Are we done? Let's look at this expression here. We have 2 on the top, 6 on the bottom. If I reduce 2 over 6, I can divide both numbers by 2. For 6 and 2, I can divide both numbers by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Now look at the letters. X and Y, they are different letters. S and Y, they are different letters. They cannot be simplified. So I leave both of them the same. The final answer is x over 3y. Because 1x is the same as x. For any polynomial, if the coefficient is 1, we don't write 1. 1x is the same as x. That's the final answer. Next. S squared minus 4 over s squared minus 5x plus 6. S squared minus 4 over s squared minus 5x plus 6. For any rational expression, always try to factor first, then cancel the common factors. Always try to factor first, then cancel the common factors. If I factor the top, this is difference of perfect square. If I factor the top, this is difference of perfect square. S squared minus 4. S squared can be rewritten as x times x squared. Number 4 can be rewritten as 2 times 2, that's 2 squared. If we try to match the formula, a squared minus b squared equal to a plus b times a minus b. we can see that x represents A, 2 represents B. So we have A plus B times A minus B, which is x plus 2 times s minus 2. That's the numerator. S plus 2 times s minus 2. The denominator, x squared minus 4x plus 6. This is a trinomial. This is a trinomial with no leading coefficient, so I can draw two premises. Split s squared evenly. I have x times x. Then I try to find two numbers. Let multiply to be 6, add to be -5. Try to find two numbers. Let multiply to be 6, add to be number 5. Find two numbers. Let multiply to be 6, add to be -5. We can try 2 and 3. Since I want to get -5 here, I can use -2 times -3. -2 times -3 is -6. And -2 plus -3 is -5. So -2 and -3 works. Put both numbers in the parentheses. -2, -3. So here, we factor both top and the bottom first. Then observe. On the top and the bottom, we can see that s minus 2 looks exactly the same. X minus 2 looks exactly the same. I can cancel s minus 2 from top and the bottom. I can cancel s minus 2 from top and bottom. What's left is x plus 2 on the top and s minus 3 on the bottom. That's the final answer. So for the rational function, we always factor both the top and the bottom completely. Then cancel all common factors. Factor completely first, then cancel common factors from top and the bottom. And this is your final answer. Next, we have x squared plus 5x minus 4 over s squared plus 2x minus a. S squared plus 5x plus 4 over s squared plus 2x minus a. Try to factor first. The top is a trinomial with no leading coefficient. So I can write two parentheses, put x on each parenthesis. Then can we find two numbers? Let multiply to be 4 and add to be 5. Can we find two numbers? Let they multiply to be 4, add to be 5. Can we find two numbers? Let multiply to be 4, and when I add, I get 5. The only possibility is 1 and 4. 1 times 4 is 4, right? But I try to get positive 5 here. So I can use positive 1, positive 4. When I multiply, I get 4. When I add the numbers, I get positive 5. So this two number works. 1 and 4 works. Put both of them in the parentheses. Positive 1, positive 4. That's the numerator. Now do the same thing for the denominator. We try to factor the denominator. Denominator is a trinomial with no leading coefficient. So I write two parentheses, split s squared evenly, put 1s on each parenthesis. Next, we try to find two numbers that they multiply to be -a and they add to be positive 2. Can we find two numbers that they multiply to be -a and they add to be positive 2? We can write down all possibilities for number 8. Number 8 can be written as 1 times a or 2 times 4. That's the only possibility for number 8. For number 8, the only possibility is 1 times a or 2 times 4. And we know that here, 4 minus 2 is 2. So you can try to use 2 and 4. If I try to get positive 2 here, I can use -2 and positive 4. -2 plus positive 4 is positive 2. When I multiply, -2 times positive 4 is -a. So these two numbers works. Put both of them in the parentheses. I have -2 and positive 4. Then observe. For this expression, we can see that s plus 4 looks exactly the same on the top and the bottom. S plus 4 looks exactly the same on the top and the bottom. So I can cancel s plus 4 from top and the bottom. What's left is s plus 1 over s minus 2. Cancel the common factor. What's left is the final answer. Next. (4x squared minus ax plus 3 over 6x squared minus 7x minus 3. Same thing. For any rational expression, always try to factor first, then cancel the common factors. Always try to factor first, then cancel the common factors. How do we factor the numerator? On the numerator, we have 4x squared minus ax plus 3. That's the numerator. 4x squared minus ax plus 3. How do we factor this? How do we factor this? We can first of all use AC method. A times C is positive 12. Can we find two numbers that they multiply to be 12 and they add to be negative A? We can try. 12 can be written as 1 times 12, 2 times 6, or 3 times 4. That's the only possibility. For each pair, can we add and subtract to get A? The only possibility here is 2 and 6. 2 times 2 plus 6 is number A. So let's try to use 2 and 6 here. Here we want to get negative A. So we need to have negative 2 and negative 6. When I add, I get negative A. When I multiply, I get positive 12. So keep first term the same. Rewrite the middle term using these two numbers. Negative 2x, negative 6x. The letter must be the same. For coefficients, use negative 2 and negative 6. Letters must be the same. Keep the last term the same. Now we have 4 terms. We can factor this by grouping. For the first 2 terms, I can pull out common factor 2. Common letter is x. 4 divided by 2 is 2. X squared means there are 2x multiplied together. If I pull out one of them, the other one left here. For the second term, 2 divided by 2 is 1. There's only 1x. If I pull out x, then there's no x left. That's the first half. For the second half, take out common factor between 6 and 3. For 6 and 3, the greatest common factor is 3. That's the largest number that divides both 6 and 3. Since the first term is negative, I need to pull out negative sign. Negative 6 divided by negative 3 is positive 2. X stays the same. Next term, positive 3 divided by negative 3 is negative 1. Positive 3 divided by negative 3 is negative 1. Now here we can see that 2x minus 1 looks exactly the same. 2x minus 1 looks exactly the same. If I pull out 2x minus 1, what's left is 2x minus 3. That's the numerator. That's the numerator after we factor. That's the numerator after we factor. So if I factor the numerator, I get this. 2x minus 1 times 2x minus 3. Put it on the top. For the denominator, do the same thing. We need to factor the denominator completely. We need to factor the denominator completely. Denominator is 6x. 6x squared minus 7x minus 3. When you see a trinomial with leading coefficient, try to use AC method. A times C is negative 18. Can we find two numbers that multiply to be negative 18, add to be negative 7? Let's write down all possibilities. If it's too hard to get a number, you can write down all possibilities. 18 can be written as 1 times 18, 2 times 9, 3 times 6. We try to add and subtract the numbers and try to get number 7. Try to add and subtract the numbers. We try to get number 7 here. The only possibility is 9 minus 2 equal to 7. So let's try to use number 2 and number 9. We try to get negative 7. So if we want to get negative 7, I can use positive 2 and negative 9. Positive 2 plus negative 9 is negative 7. And positive 2 times negative 9 is negative 18. Positive 2 times negative 9 is negative 18. So these two numbers works. These two numbers work. I replace the middle term. Keep the first term the same. Replace the middle term with these two, using these two numbers with the same variables. I have positive 2x minus 9x minus 3. Replace the middle term using these two numbers, positive 2x and minus 9x. Now we have 4 terms. We can try to factor this by grouping. If I group the first 2 terms together and take a common factor, I have 2 as a common factor. 2 is the largest number that divides both 6 and 2. S is a common factor. S is a common letter, power of x. Lower power is power 1. So common factor is 2x. For the first term, 6 divided by 2 is 3. S squared means there are 2x multiplied together. If I pull out one of them, the other one left here. For the second term, 2 divided by 2 is 1. There's only 1x. If I pull out x, there's no x left. For the second part, for 9 and 3, the greatest common factor is 3. That's the largest number that divides both 9 and 3. If the first term is negative, I need to pull out negative sign. If the first term is negative, I need to pull out negative sign. Then what's left here? Negative 9 divided by negative 3 is positive 3. Negative 9 divided by negative 3 is positive 3. X stays here. Second term, negative 3 divided by negative 3 is positive 1. So the common factor here, you can see that 3x plus 1 is the same. That's the common factor. If I pull out the common factor 3x plus 1, what's left is 2x minus 3. What's left is 2x minus 3. That's the denominator. If I factor denominator, 6x squared minus 7x minus 3, I get this. I get 3x plus 1 times 2x minus 3. Put it on the bottom. Then observe the top and the bottom. We can see that here, 2x minus 3 on the top and the bottom looks exactly the same. I can cross them out. If I cross them out, what's left is 2x minus 1 over 3x plus 1. And that's the final answer. We leave it the way it is. That's the final answer. Next. (2x to the power 3 minus ax over 3x to the power 3 minus 9x squared plus 6x. So for rational expression, always try to factor completely first, then do cancellation. Let's factor completely first. For the numerator, we have 2x to the power 3 minus ax. I can try to take out a common factor first. Take out common factor. For 2 and a, the greatest common factor is 2. That's the largest number that divides both 2 and a. Common letter is x, and lower power is power 1. If I pull out 2x, for the first term, 2 divided by 2 is 1. X to the power 3 means there are 3x multiplied together. If I pull out one of them, we have 2 more x left. Second term, negative a divided by 2 is 4, it's negative 4. Negative a divided by 2 is negative 4. There's only one x. If I pull out x, then there's no x left. And usually for polynomial, if the coefficient is 1, we don't write 1. So 1s squared is the same as s squared. Then observe, we can see that s squared is a perfect square. X times x is s squared. Number 4 is also perfect square. 2 times 2 is 4. If they are both perfect squares, we can use the formula that a squared minus b squared equal to a plus b times a minus b. If we use the formula, we have x plus 2 times s minus 2, a plus b times a minus b. And bring 2x down, leave 2x the same. That's the factor form of this expression. So if we factor the denominator, if we factor the numerator, 2x cubed minus ax, I get this. 2x times x plus 2 times x minus 2. That's the numerator. After we factor, we get this. Next, do the same thing to the denominator. Factor the denominator. Denominator is 3x to the power 3 minus 9x squared plus 6x. If I try to factor the denominator, I can first of all pull out the common factor first. Common factor for 3, 9, and 6. The greatest common factor is 3. That's the largest number that divides both. That divides all 3 numbers. Common letter is x. If I pull out x, what's left here? First term, 3 divided by 3 is 1. X to the power 3 means there are 3x multiplied together. If I pull out one of them, 2 more x left here. For the second term, 9 divided by 3 is 3. X squared means there are 2x multiplied together. If I pull out one of them, the other one left here. For the third term, 6 divided by 3 is 2. There's only one x. If I pull out x, then there's no x left. And for any polynomial, if the coefficient is 1, we don't write 1. So 1s squared is the same as s squared. Then we can try to factor this polynomial. This is a trinomial and there's no leading coefficient. I can draw 2 parentheses, split s squared, put x on each parenthesis. Then we try to find 2 numbers that they multiply to be 2, add to be negative 3. Find 2 numbers that they multiply to be 2 and they add to be negative 3. We can try negative 1 and negative 2. Negative 1 times negative 2 is positive 2. Negative 1 plus negative 2 is negative 3. So these 2 numbers works. If these 2 numbers work, I can put these 2 numbers in the parentheses. Negative 1, negative 2. And keep 3x the same. Keep 3x the same. So that's the factor form of the denominator. That's the factor form of the denominator. We have 3x s plus 1, s minus 1 times s minus 2. Now we try to do cancellation. Factor completely first, then do cancellation. We can cancel x minus 2 from top and bottom. They look exactly the same. Cancel s minus 2 from top and bottom. I can also cancel x from top and bottom. These 2x, they look exactly the same. Cancel these 2x from top and bottom. If they look exactly the same, cancel these 2x from top and bottom. So for the final answer, we have a 2 left on the top. x plus 2 on the top. We have 3 left on the bottom, s minus 1 on the bottom. That's the final answer in the simplest form. Next, 2 minus x over x minus 2. 2 minus x over x minus 2. How do we simplify this? This cannot be factor. They cannot be factor. What can we do here? Remember, last class I told you that for any polynomials a plus b, if I switch order, it's the same as b plus a. If I switch order for addition, if I switch order, a plus b is exactly the same as b plus a. But for subtraction, a minus b is not the same as b minus a. If I switch order, they are not the same. For subtraction, if I switch order, they are not the same. But if I switch order, they equal to negative b minus a. So a minus b, if I switch order, I add negative sign in the front. A minus b is the same as negative b minus a. If I switch order for subtraction, if I switch order, I add negative sign in the front. So here, we see that the top and the bottom looks almost the same. They have exactly the same terms, but with different order. If I switch order on the numerator, I add negative sign. And keep the bottom the same. If I switch order on the numerator, I add negative sign in the front. I leave the bottom the same. Then I can cancel the top and the bottom. If I cancel the top and the bottom completely, we have a negative sign left. If the top and the bottom is cancelled completely, the answer is 1. If the top and the bottom is cancelled completely, we cannot leave the answer blank. We write negative 1 as the final answer. If the top and the bottom is cancelled, they are both cancelled completely, we cannot leave the answer blank. The answer here is negative 1. Next, 3x minus 6 over 4 minus x squared. Three x minus 6 over 4 minus x squared. So for any rational expression, we try to factor first, then do cancellation. Factor completely first, then do cancellation. On the numerator, if I factor, I can try to pull out common factor. If I pull out common factor first, I can pull out number 3. First term is 3x. If I pull out 3, what's left is x. Second term, we take 6 divided by 3, I get 2. So that's the numerator. How do we factor denominator? Denominator, we have 4 minus s squared. How do we factor 4 minus s squared? If we observe, we can see that number 4 is a common factor. 4 is 2 squared. 2 times 2 is 4. S squared can be written as x squared. X times x is s squared. Then imagine the formula here. A squared minus b squared. If we imagine the formula, we can use this formula here. We have 2 plus x times 2 minus x. We have 2 plus x times 2 minus x. That's the denominator. 2 plus x over 2 minus x. So what can we do here? Now you can see that here, the top and the bottom here, x minus 2 and 2 minus x, they look almost the same, but they have opposite order. Usually, to make it a little easier, we try to write x in the front. Usually, to make it a little easier, we try to write x in the front. Make it a little easier, we try to write x in the front. For the first term, it's addition. 2 plus x is addition. For addition, if I switch order, I don't make any change. It stays exactly the same. If I switch order, it stays exactly the same. For subtraction, if I switch order, I add negative sign in the front. I have negative x minus 2. Then for the final answer, this term is positive, this term is negative. Positive term times negative term is negative. This term is positive, this term is negative. Positive term times negative term is negative. X plus 2, s minus 2. That's the simplified denominator. So denominator is negative x plus 2 times x minus 2 over 3 times x minus 2. That's the top and the bottom. We factor completely and then write x in the front, make it a little easier for each term. If I write x in the front, it will be a little easier. Now we do cancellation here. We can see that x minus 2 looks exactly the same. I can cancel from top and the bottom. The top is positive 3. The bottom is negative x plus 2. Positive number divided by negative number is negative. Usually write negative sign in the front. The top is positive, bottom is negative. Positive number divided by negative number, answer is negative. Put negative sign in the front. On the top we have x, we have number 3 on the top. On the bottom we have s plus 2. If there's nothing in front of the parentheses, we don't write parentheses. For the final answer, if there's nothing in front of the parentheses, we don't write parentheses. We write x plus 2 on the bottom without parentheses. That's the final answer on the bottom. That's the final answer for number 16. Next. Nine minus s squared over s squared minus 4x plus 3. So for any rational expression, try to factor first, then do cancellation. Factor completely first, then do cancellation. On the numerator, we have 9 minus x. Nine minus x squared on the numerator. 9 minus x here. Number 9 is a perfect square. That's 3 squared. 3 squared is 9. S squared is also perfect square. X times x is s squared. Then imagine the formula. Difference of perfect squares. If we use the formula, we have 3 plus x times 3 minus x. That's the numerator. 3 plus x times 3 minus x. That's the numerator. The denominator, x squared minus 4x plus 3. This is a trinomial with no leading coefficients. I can write two parentheses, split s squared, put x on each parenthesis. Then we try to find two numbers that they multiply to be 3 and they add to be negative 4. Find two numbers that they multiply to be 3 and they add to be negative 4. We can try negative 1 and negative 3. When we multiply, we get positive 3. When we add, we get negative 4. So put both numbers in the parentheses. We have negative 1 and negative 3. That's the denominator. So denominator, we have x minus 1 and s minus 3. Put it here, s minus 1 and s minus 3. Now observe the top and the bottom. Can we cancel anything out? We can see that on the top, these two terms, on the top and the bottom, we have 3 minus x over x minus 3. They look almost the same. They have exactly the same terms, but different orders. That means we need to switch order. In general, when we switch order, we try to write x in the front. In general, when we switch order, we try to write x in the front. For these two terms, I try to switch order and write x in the front. For addition, if I switch order, I don't make any change. So 3 plus x is the same as x plus 3. For addition, if I switch order, it doesn't make any change. Everything stays the same. For subtraction, if I switch order, I need to add negative sign in the front. For subtraction, if I switch order, I need to add negative sign in the front. So if I switch order, I have x minus 3. Negative x minus 3. Then this term is positive. This term is negative. Positive number times negative number is negative. We write negative x plus 3 times x minus 3. This term is positive. This term is negative. Positive number times negative number is negative. So the numerator can be rewritten as negative x plus 3 times x minus 3. Denominator x minus 1, x minus 3. I can cancel x minus 3 from top and bottom. Simplify completely, then cancel x minus 3 from top and bottom. For the final answer, the top is positive, bottom is negative. Positive number divided by negative number is negative. The top is negative, bottom is positive. Negative number divided by positive number is negative. Since I cancel x minus 3, what's left on the top is x plus 3. What's left on the bottom is x minus 1. That's the final answer. Next. 4 minus 9x squared over 3x squared plus x minus 2. So for rational expression, always try to factor first, then combine like terms. Always try to factor first, then combine like terms. Factor the top first. How do we factor the top? On the top, we have 4 minus 9x squared. Number 4 is a perfect square. 2 times 2 is 4. Number 9 is a perfect square. 3 times 3 is 9. X squared is a perfect square. X times x is x squared. So 4 can be rewritten as 2 squared. 9x squared can be rewritten as 3x squared in parentheses. So it matches the formula ax squared minus a squared minus b squared, which is equal to a plus b times a minus b. If we use the formula 2 represent a, 3x represent b, we have 2 plus 3x times 2 minus 3x. That's the numerator. 2 plus 3x times 2 minus 3x. That's the numerator. Now how about denominator? Do the same thing. We try to factor the denominator completely. Denominator is 3x squared plus x minus 2. Denominator is 3x squared plus x minus 2. This is a trinomial and the leading coefficient is not 1. We need to use AC method. A times C is negative 6. We try to find two numbers that may multiply to be negative 6 and add to be 1. We can try 3 and 2. And then making the sign to be positive 3, negative 2. Positive 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. And positive 3 plus negative 2 is positive 1. If there's no coefficient, we assume the coefficient is 1 here. Positive 3 plus negative 2 is 1. Then we keep the first term the same. Replace the middle term using these two numbers. Positive 3x minus 2x. Variable stays the same. We use these two numbers as coefficients. Variables stays the same. Leave last term the same. Now we have 4 terms. We can factor these 4 terms by grouping. Group the first two terms together, take out a common factor. Common factor is 3. x is a common variable. And if I pull out 3x, 3 divided by 3 is 1. X squared means there are 2x multiplied together. If I pull out 1 over x, the other x left here. Second term, 3 divided by 3 is 1. There's only 1x. If I pull out x, there's nothing left. And we know that for any polynomial, if the coefficient is 1, we don't write 1. 1x is the same as x. Second half. For 2x and 2, common factor is 2. And there's no common letters. There are no common letters. If the first term is negative, we pull out negative sign. So pull out negative 2. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 is 1. X stays the same. Second term, negative 2 divided by negative 2 is also 1. And for any polynomial, if coefficient is 1, we don't write 1. 1x is the same as x. 1x is the same as x. So we get x plus 1 here. Then we can see that here, x plus 1. X plus 1 is a common factor. X plus 1 is a common factor. If I pull out x plus 1, what's left is 3x minus 2. That's the final answer for the denominator. That's the answer for the denominator. We have x plus 1 times 3x minus 2. Now if we observe the top and the bottom, we can see that 2 minus 3x and 3 minus 2x, they look almost the same. They have exactly the same terms, but opposite order. So in this case, we try to switch order from the numerator. In general, try to switch order, write x in the front. In general, we try to switch order, write a term with x in the front. Now let's try to switch order. For the numerator, if I try to switch order, for addition, it stays the same. For addition, if I switch order, it stays exactly the same. If I switch order, it looks exactly the same. For subtraction, if I switch order, I add negative sign. For subtraction, if I switch order, I add negative sign. Then positive term times negative term is negative. Positive number times negative number is negative. Write negative in the front. 3x plus 2 times 3x minus 2. Positive number times negative number is negative. Write negative sign in the front. So we have negative 3x plus 2 times 3x minus 2. That's the numerator. Negative 3x plus 2 times 3x minus 2. That's the numerator. Denominator, we leave here the same. S plus 1 times 3x minus 2. Then since 3x minus 2 looks exactly the same, I can cancel from top and the bottom. For the final answer, the top is negative, bottom is positive. Negative number divided by positive number is negative. On the top, after cancellation, what's left is 3x plus 2. On the bottom, after cancellation, what's left is x plus 1. So that's your final answer. Next, I'll show you multiplication and division of rational expressions. Multiplication and division of rational expressions. Let's look at multiplication first. How do we multiply? 3x over x squared plus 5x times 3x plus 15 over 6x. So in general, we try to factor both top and bottom. Try to factor both top and bottom individually. Then try to do cancellation. Factor first, then do cancellation. When we do multiplication, factor top and bottom first, then do cancellation. For the first numerator, 3x, it cannot be factored. I leave it the way it is. For the denominator, x squared plus 5x, I can factor power x. x squared plus 5x, I can factor power x. If I pull out x squared means there are 2x multiplied together. If I pull out one of an x, we have the other x left here. Plus 5x. If I pull out x, there's number 5 left. Next, for the second fraction, on the numerator, I can pull out 3. For the second fraction, on the numerator, I can pull out 3. If I pull out 3, first term, 3x. If I pull out 3, what's left is x. For the second term, 15 divided by 3 is 5. On the denominator, 6x cannot be factored. I leave it the way it is. Then we can see that here, x plus 5 looks exactly the same. I can cancel from top and bottom. X plus 5 looks exactly the same. I can cancel from top and bottom. Also, I can cancel one of an x from top and bottom. Cancel one of an x from top and bottom. What's left is, on the top we have 3 times 3, which is 9. On the bottom, what's left is 6x. Then for 9 and 6, I can divide both numbers by 3. I have 3 over 2x. I can divide both numbers by 3. I have 3 over 2x. That's the final answer. Next, a over 36x squared minus 1 times 6x plus 1 over 4. A over 36x squared minus 1 times 6x plus 1 over 4. Try to factor first. For any rational expression, try to factor first. Factor both top and bottom. Top is number a, that cannot be factored. I leave it the way it is. On the bottom, 36x squared minus 1. 36x squared. 36x squared minus 1. 36 is a perfect square. We know 6 times 6 is 36. X squared is a perfect square. X times x is x squared. So 36x squared can be rewritten as 6x squared with parentheses. Number 1 can be rewritten as 1 squared. If we use the formula here, we have 6x plus 1 times 6x minus 1. That's the factor form of the denominator. 6x plus 1 times 6x minus 1. The second fraction, we try to factor both top and bottom. But on the top, 6x plus 1, there's no common factor. It cannot be factored. I leave it the way it is. On the bottom, it's number 4. Number 4 cannot be factored. I leave it the way it is. Then here we can see that 6x plus 1 and 6x plus 1, they look exactly the same. They get cancelled. What's left on the top is number a. On the bottom, we have 6x minus 1 times 4. On the bottom, we have 6x minus 1 times 4. Number 4 is outside the parentheses. Usually we write number 4 in the front. If there's anything outside the parentheses, put it in the front. If there's anything outside the parentheses, when you multiply, put it in the front. So on the bottom we have 6x minus 1 times number 4. Write number 4 in the front. When we multiply 3 across. Top to the top, bottom to the bottom. On the top there's nothing to multiply across, so I leave number 8 the way it is. On the bottom, 6x minus 1 times 4. Number 4 is outside the parentheses. I put it in the front. 4 times 6x minus 1. Next, try to cancel the numbers. For number 8 and 4, I can divide both numbers by 4. Number 8 divided by 4 is 2. Number 4 divided by 4 is 1. And for any polynomial, if coefficient is 1, we don't write 1. So the final answer is 2 over 6x minus 1. The final answer is 2 over 6x minus 1. If I eliminate 1, there's nothing in the front of parentheses. If there's nothing in front of the parentheses, we can drop the parentheses. We have 6x minus 1. 2 over 6x minus 1. That's the final answer for this problem. Next. X squared plus 4x minus 21 over 3x minus 9 times 6x squared minus 24 over s plus 2. So same thing. When we try to multiply polynomials, try to factor. When we try to multiply rational expressions, we try to simply factor both top and bottom first. When we try to multiply rational functions, we need to factor every numerator and denominator first. Let's factor first numerator, s squared plus 4x minus 21. S squared plus 4x minus 21. This is a trinomial with no leading coefficient. This is a trinomial with no leading coefficient. So I can write x on each parenthesis. Then try to find two numbers. Let them multiply to be 21. Add to be positive 4. We can try 3 and 7. Since I try to make positive 4 here, I use negative 3, positive 7. Negative 3 plus positive 7 is positive 4. And negative 3 times positive 7 is negative 21. Put these two numbers in the parentheses. We have x minus 3 times x plus 7. So factor x squared plus 4x minus 21. We have x minus 3 times x plus 7. That's the first numerator. Now for the first denominator here, 3x minus 9. I can try to factor by pulling out the common factors. For 3x minus 9, the common factor is 3. That's the largest number that divides both 3 and 9. For 3x, if I pull out 3, what's left is an x. Second term, negative 9. 9 divided by 3 is 3. That's the first denominator. Now let's look at the second numerator. 6 times x squared minus 24. 6 times x squared minus 24. I can first of all try to pull out a common factor. Common factor is 6. For 6x squared, if I pull out 6, what's left is x squared. For number 24, 24 divided by 6 is 4. Now observe here, x squared is a perfect square. Number 4 is also perfect square. 2 times 2 is 4. If I use the formula, I have x plus 2s minus 2. Leave number 6 the same. Leave number 6 the same. So, if I factor the second numerator, I have 6 times s plus 2 times s minus 2 The denominator is x plus 2. It cannot be factored. I leave it the same. Factor completely. Then we try to cancel. Factor completely. Then we try to do cancellation here. I can cancel x minus 3 from top and bottom. I can cancel x plus 2 from top and bottom. What's left on the top is x plus 7 times 6 times x minus 2. Number 6 is outside the parentheses. Put it in the front. We have x plus 7 times x minus 2. That's the numerator. Number 6, x plus 7, x minus 2. That's the numerator. The denominator, we only have number 3 on the bottom. And we know that 6 divided by 3 is 2. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So the final answer is 2 times x plus 7 times x minus 2. This is the final answer. Next. S squared minus x minus 30 over s squared plus 10x plus 9 times s squared minus 7x, s squared plus 7x minus 18 over s squared minus ax plus 12. Try to factor each numerator and denominator first. Let's first of all factor first numerator. This is a trinomial and has no leading coefficient. We can draw two parentheses. Write x on each parenthesis. We split s squared evenly. Write x on each parenthesis. Next, we try to find two numbers that they multiply to be negative 30 and they add to be negative 1. Try to find two numbers that they multiply to be negative 30, add to be negative 1. The only possibility is we can try 5 and 6. Since I try to get negative 1 here, I can try to use positive 5, negative 6. Positive 5 plus negative 6 is negative 1. Positive 5 times negative 6 is negative 30. So put these two numbers in the parentheses. Positive 5, negative 6. Find two numbers that they multiply to be negative 30 and they add to be negative 1. Next, the denominator. Same thing. This is a trinomial with no leading coefficient. So I split s squared evenly, put x on each parenthesis. Then I try to find two numbers. They multiply to be positive 9 and they add to be positive 10. Find two numbers that they multiply to be positive 9 and they add to be positive 10. The only possibility is positive 1 and positive 9. The only possibility is positive 1, positive 9. When we multiply, we get 9. When we add, we get 10. So that's the first denominator. S plus 1, S plus 9. Now the second numerator. Same thing, this is a trinomial with no leading coefficient. Draw two parentheses. Split s squared evenly. Write x on each parenthesis. Then we try to find two numbers. Then they multiply to be negative 18. And they add to be positive 7. Find two numbers. When we multiply, we get negative 18. When we add, we get positive 7. Here we can try to use 2 and 9. 9 minus 2 is 7. So we can make negative 2 and positive 9. When I add the number, negative 2 plus positive 9 is positive 7. And negative 2 times positive 9 is negative 18. So put these two numbers in the parentheses. Negative 2, positive 9. For the second denominator, s squared minus ax plus 12. This is a trinomial with no leading coefficient. Draw two parentheses. Split x squared. Write x squared. Write x on each parenthesis. Then we try to find two numbers that when we multiply, we get 12. Find two numbers. When we multiply, we get 12. When we add, we get negative a. For number 12, we can try 2 times 6. Since we try to make negative a, I can use negative 2 and negative 6. When I add negative 2 and negative 6, I get negative a. When I multiply negative 2 and negative 6, when I multiply negative 2 and negative 6, I get positive 12. So these two numbers works. Put this number in the parentheses, negative 2, negative 6. So factor completely. Factor each denominator and numerator completely. Then observe. Can we cancel anything out? Can we cancel anything out? I can cancel x minus 2 from top and bottom. I can cancel x minus 6 from top and bottom. I can cancel s plus 9 from top and bottom. What's left is s plus 5, s plus 1. So the final answer is s plus 5 over s plus 1. That's the final answer. Next, 2 over x minus 5 times s squared minus 25. Here we have a rational function times a polynomial. We can consider rational expression as a fraction. We can consider polynomial as a whole number. But we have a fraction times whole number. We keep fraction the same and put the whole number over 1. Keep fraction the same, put the whole number over 1. Then follow multiplication rule. We try to factor each numerator and denominator, then do cancellation. First numerator cannot be factored. First denominator also cannot be factored. I leave it the same. Second numerator, s squared minus 25. I can try to factor. S squared minus 25. S squared can be rewritten as x squared. 25 can be rewritten as 5 squared. We have perfect square a squared minus b squared. So it matches the formula here, a squared minus b squared. We can use the formula a plus b times a minus b. X plus 5 times s minus 5. So that's the numerator here. S plus 5 times s minus 5 over 1. Then we can cancel s minus 5 from top and bottom. Factor completely. I can cancel s minus 5 from top and bottom. For the final answer, we have 2 times x plus 5 on the top over number 1. And we know that for any fraction, if the denominator is 1, we don't write 1. For any fraction, if the denominator is 1, we don't write 1. So the final answer is 2 times x plus 5. That's the final answer. Next, x squared minus 3x plus 2 times 4 over x minus 2. So we can consider polynomial as a whole number, rational expression as a fraction. We consider this as a whole number, consider this as a fraction. When we have whole number times fraction, we put the whole number over 1 and leave the fraction the same. Then we try to follow multiplication rule. Factor each denominator and numerator. Factor each numerator and denominator. Then do cancellation. The numerator here, x squared minus 3x plus 2. This is a trinomial with no leading coefficient. I can split x squared, put x on each parentheses. Then try to find two numbers that they multiply to be 2 and they add to be -3. Try to find two numbers that they multiply to be 2 and they add to be -3. And the only possibility is -1 and -3. The only possibility is -1, -3. Sorry, -2 and -3. The only possibility is -2 and -3. -1 times -2 is +2. And -1 plus -2 is -3. Put this whole number in the parentheses. The denominator is number 1. It's not factorable, and even though it is. For the second fraction, numerator is 4. Number 4 is not factorable, and even though it is. Denominator is s minus 2. Again, it's not factorable, and even though it is. Then cancel. We can cancel x minus 2 from top and the bottom. What's left is 4 times x minus 1 on the top. We multiply the top to the top. S minus 1 times 4. Since number 4 is outside the parentheses, we put it in the front. When we multiply the numerator, top to the top, s minus 1 times 4. Since number 4 is outside the parentheses, put it in the front. We put it in the front. So we have 4 times s minus 1. Denominator is number 1. For any fraction, if the denominator is 1, we don't write 1. And the final answer is 4 times s minus 1. That's the final answer. 4 times s minus 1. Next, I'll show you division for rational expressions. (5x plus 20 over x minus 4 divided by 3x plus 12 over x plus 7. How can we do division? First of all, let's review how do we do division for fractions. What's 2/5 divided by 4/7? What's 2/5 divided by 4/7? When we do division, we keep the first fraction the same. Change division to multiplication. Then we flip the second fraction over. Keep first fraction the same. Change division to multiplication. Then we flip the second fraction over. Once we do now we have multiplication, I can multiply the top to the top, bottom to the bottom. Then I can cancel. For 14 and 20, I can divide top and bottom by 2. I get 7 over 10. So for division, the general step is we keep first fraction the same. Change division to multiplication. Flip the second fraction over. Then we multiply top to the top, bottom to the bottom. Then do cancellation. So same thing for rational expressions. When we are doing division, we keep the first fraction the same. Change division to multiplication. We write a dot for multiplication. If I write cross here, it looks like x. So write a dot for multiplication. If we write cross here, it looks like x. That's very confused. So usually, for rational expression, we write dots for multiplication. Change division to multiplication. Then flip the second fraction over. S plus 7 over 3x plus 12. Then follow multiplication rule. Follow multiplication rule. We try to factor each numerator and denominator. Try to factor each numerator and denominator. For the first numerator, if I factor 5x plus 20, I can try to pull out the greatest common factor. For 5 and 20, the greatest common factor is 5. If I pull out 5, from 5x, if I pull out 5, I have x left. For the second term, 20 divided by 5 is 4. That's the numerator. Denominator is x minus 4. Next, second numerator, x plus 7 is not factorable. I leave it with it. For denominator, 3x plus 12, I can try to factor 3 out. 3 is the greatest common factor. That's the largest number that divides both 3 and 12. Then for 3x, if I pull out 3, what's left is x. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So I factor everything completely. Next, I try to do cancellation. If we observe from the top and the bottom, we can see that s plus 4 looks exactly the same. I can cancel s plus 4 from top and the bottom. What's left is 5 times, on the top, 5 times x plus 7. I multiply the top to the top. Then we multiply the bottom to the bottom. X minus 4 times 3. S minus 4 times 3. We can consider s minus 4 is in the parentheses. 3 is by itself. X minus 4 is in the parentheses. So I write number 3 in the front. X minus 4 in the parentheses. We have 2 terms in the denominator. There's only 1 term here. For 1 term, we don't need parentheses. But for 2 terms, we need to put them in parentheses. Then when we multiply, we put 3 in the front. That's the final answer. Next, 2x plus 12 over 3x minus 4 divided by 4x minus 6 over 12x minus a. So when we have division, we keep the first fraction the same. Keep the first fraction the same. Change division to multiplication, and then flip the second fraction over. Keep first fraction the same. Change division to multiplication. Flip the second fraction over. Then try to follow multiplication rule. We factor each numerator and denominator, then do cancellation. Factor each numerator and denominator, then do cancellation. For the first numerator, 2x plus 12, I can pull out common factor 2. 2x plus 12, I can pull out common factor 2. If I pull out 2, I have, from 2x, if I pull out 2, I have x left. For the second term, 12 divided by 2 is 6. That's the first numerator. And for the first denominator, 3x minus 4, I leave it the same. It cannot be factored. There's no common factor. It cannot be factored, so I leave it the same. Times the second fraction. For the numerator, 12x minus a, I can factor by pulling out the common factors. For 12 and a, the greatest common factor is 4. That's the largest number that divides both 12 and a. 12 divided by 4 is 3. X stays the same. A divided by 4 is 2. For the denominator, for 4 and 6, I can pull out 2. That's the largest number that divides both 4 and 6. If I pull out 2, 4 divided by 2 is 2. X stays the same. 6 divided by 2 is 3. That's the denominator. Next, we try to do cancellation. So here, nothing looks the same. The only thing we can cancel is number 2. Cancel 2 from top and the bottom. That's the only thing we can cancel. Since nothing can be cancelled, the final answer, put everything together. On the numerator, we have number 4 outside the parentheses, put it in the front. If we multiply the top to the top, we have number 4 outside the parentheses, put it in the front. And we have x plus 6 and 3x minus 2. On the denominator, we have 3x minus 4 times 2x minus 3. Since nothing can be cancelled, that's the final answer. Next, x squared minus 9 over 4x minus 8 divided by 3x plus 9 over x squared plus 3x minus 10. So when we have division, we first of all keep the first fraction the same. Change division to multiplication. Flip the second fraction over, which reads like a dot for multiplication. Flip the second fraction over. X squared plus 3x minus 10 over 3x plus 9. Then try to factor and then do cancellation. How do we factor x squared minus 9? For x squared minus 9, if we observe, we can see that x squared minus 9, x squared is a perfect square. Number 9 is 3 times 3, that's 3 squared. We have difference of perfect square. Use the formula, we have x plus 3 times x minus 3. That's the numerator. X plus 3 times x minus 3. For the denominator, 4x minus 8, I can try to pull out number 4. 4 is the greatest common factor. That's the largest number that divides both 4 and 8. For the first term, if I pull out 4, first term is 4x, if I pull out 4, what's left is an x. For the second term, 8 divided by 4 is 2. That's the first fraction. For the second fraction, if I factor, this numerator here is x. This is a trinomial with no leading coefficient, so I write x on each parenthesis. Then try to find two numbers that they multiply to be negative 10 and they add to be positive 3. Try to find two numbers that they multiply to be negative 10 and they add to be positive 3. We can, for number 10, we can try 2 and 5. Since I want to get positive 3 here, I can use negative 2 and positive 5. Negative 2 plus positive 5 is positive 3. Negative 2 plus positive 5 is positive 3. Negative 2 times positive 5 is negative 10. So this two number works. Put this two number in the parentheses. Put this two number in the parentheses. We have negative 2, positive 5. On the denominator, 3x plus 9. I can try to take out a common factor. For 3 and 9, the greatest common factor is 3. If I pull out 3, from 3x, if I pull out 3, what's left is x. For number 9, 9 divided by 3 is 3. Then I can do cancellation from top and the bottom. Factor completely, then we can do cancellation from top and the bottom. We can see that here, x plus 3 looks exactly the same. They can be cancelled. And x minus 2 looks exactly the same. They could be cancelled. For the final answer, we multiply the top to the top, bottom to the bottom. For the top, we have x minus 3 times x minus x plus 5. That's the numerator. For the denominator, we have 4 times 3, which is 12. And that's the final answer. Next. X squared minus 3x minus 4 divided by x squared minus 5x plus 6 divided by x squared plus 4x plus 3 over x squared plus x minus 6. So when we do division, we keep the first fraction the same. change division to multiplication. Then we flip the second fraction over. When we do division, keep first fraction the same. Change division to multiplication, then flip the second fraction over. Then we follow multiplication rule. We try to factor each numerator and denominator, then do cancellation. If we factor the first numerator, s squared minus 3x minus 4, this is a trinomial with no leading coefficients. We can draw two parentheses. Split s squared evenly. S squared can be split as x times x. Then we try to find two numbers that when we multiply, we get -4. When we add, we get -3. For -4, we can try 1 and 4. Then since we're going to get -3 here, we can make +1 -4. When we add, +1 plus -4 is -3. And +1 times -4 is -4. So this two number works. We can use this two number here. S plus 1, S minus 4. That's the numerator. For the denominator, same thing. This is a trinomial with no leading coefficient. We split s squared evenly. Put x on each parentheses. Then we try to find two numbers. Like when we multiply, we get 6. When we add, we get -5. For number 6, we can try 2 and 3. Since we're going to get -5 here, try -2, -3. -2 plus -3 is -5. -2 times -3 is 6. -2 times -3 is +6. So this two number works. Put this two number in the parentheses. -2, -3 times the second fraction. The numerator is -6. The numerator is trinomial with no leading coefficient. So draw two parentheses. Put x on each parentheses. Then we try to find two numbers that when we multiply, we get -6. When we add, we get +1. If there's no number, if there's no coefficient, we assume coefficient is 1. Try to find two numbers that when we multiply, we get -6. When we add, we get +1. We can try to use 2 and 3. Since we try to get +1 here, I can use -2 and +3. -2 plus +3 is +1. And -2 times +3 is -6. So this two number works. We can use -2 and +3. For the denominator, again, this is a trinomial with no leading coefficients. We can split s squared evenly. Put x on each parentheses. Then try to find two numbers. When we multiply, we get +3. When we add, we get +4. Find two numbers. When we multiply, we get +3. When we add, we get +4. We can try to use +1 and +3. When we multiply, we get 3. When we add, we get 4. So put these two numbers in the parentheses. +1, +3. Then cancel common factors from top and bottom. We can cancel x plus 1 from top and bottom, x plus 3 from top and bottom, x minus 2 from top and bottom. For the final answer, we have x minus 4 over x minus 3. After cancellation, that's what's left. So that's your final answer. Next. (2x plus 2) divided by x squared plus 6x plus 5 over x minus 2. So for number 11, we have a polynomial divided by rational expression. Usually we consider polynomial is a whole number. Rational expression is a fraction. When we have a whole number divided by fraction, we first of all put the whole number over 1. We first of all put the whole number over 1 first. First of all, put the whole number over 1. When we have whole number divided by fraction, we first of all put the whole number over 1. Then we keep the first fraction the same. Change division to multiplication. Then we flip the second fraction over. Keep first fraction the same. Change division to multiplication. Then we flip the second fraction over. We have x minus 2 over x squared plus 6x plus 5. Then follow multiplication rule. We try to factor each numerator and denominator, then do cancellation. For the first numerator, I can try to pull out 2. 2 is the greatest common factor. 2 is the largest number that divides both numbers. And the only number divides 2 is 2. So, first term, for 2x, if I pull out 2, what's left is x. For second term, 2 divided by 2 is 1. The denominator is number 1. I leave it the way it is. Number 1 cannot be factored. I leave it the way it is. For the second fraction, the numerator is x minus 2. That cannot be factored because there's no common factors. For the denominator, x squared plus 6x plus 5. This is a trinomial with no leading coefficients. I can draw 2 parentheses. Then I split x squared evenly. I can write x on each parentheses. Next, I try to find 2 numbers that they multiply to be 5 and they add to be 6. Find 2 numbers that they multiply to be 5 and they add to be 6. The only possibility is positive 1 and positive 5. 1 times 5 is 5, and positive 1 plus positive 5 is positive 6. Positive 1 plus positive 5 is positive 6. Positive 1 times positive 5 is 5. So 1 and 5 works. Put these 2 numbers in the parentheses, positive 1, positive 5. Then we do cancellation. We see that x plus 1 on the top and the bottom get cancelled. X plus 1 on the top and the bottom get cancelled. For the final answer, we multiply the top to the top, bottom to the bottom. We have 2 times x minus 2 over 1 times x plus 5. And for any polynomial, if coefficient is 1, we don't write 1. For any polynomial, if coefficient is 1, we don't write 1. So denominator is x plus 5. If we don't write 1, there's nothing in front of the parentheses, so I can drop parentheses. The denominator is x plus 5 without parentheses. Numerator, we have 2 times x minus 2. That's the final answer. That's the final answer in the simplest form. Next, 2x minus 8 over x squared plus 3x plus 2 divided by 6x minus 24. 2x minus 8 over x squared plus 3x plus 2 divided by 6x minus 24. When we have a fraction divided by whole number, we keep the fraction the same. When we have fraction divided by whole number, we keep fraction the same. Change it, put the whole number over 1. We consider this polynomial as a whole number. Put the polynomial over 1. When we have a fraction divided by whole number, put the whole number over 1. Usually we treat rational expression as fraction. We treat polynomial as whole number, so put whole number over 1. Next, we try to change division to multiplication. So I keep the first fraction the same. Change division to multiplication. Then I flip the second fraction over. Keep first fraction the same. Change division to multiplication. Then flip the second fraction over. Next, we follow multiplication rule. We factor each numerator and denominator. For the first numerator, if I factor, I can pull out 2. 2 is the largest number that divides both 2 and a. If I pull out 2, from 2x, if I pull out 2, I have an x left. For number 8, 8 divided by 2 is 4. For the denominator, we have x squared plus 3x plus 2. This is a trinomial with no leading coefficients. So I can draw two parentheses. Split x squared, put it in the parentheses. Next, I try to find two numbers that they multiply to be 2 and they add to be 3. Find two numbers that they multiply to be 2 and they add to be 3. The only possibility is positive 1 and positive 2. When I multiply, I get 2. When I add, I get positive 3. That's the only possibility. Put these two numbers in the parentheses. Positive 1, positive 2. Next fraction. Number 1 on the top cannot be factored. Number 1 is not factorable. Denominator, we have 6x minus 24. I can try to pull out common factors. For 6 and 24, 6 is the common factor. That's the largest number that divides both 6 and 24. So pull out 6. From 6x, if I pull out 6, I have an x left. For 24, I take 24 divided by 6, which is 4. Then I can cancel negative 4 from x minus 4 from top and the bottom. What's left? On the top, 2 times 1 is 2. I multiply straight across, top to the top, and bottom to the bottom. On the top, 2 times 1 is 2. On the bottom, we have this denominator times 6. Since 6 is outside the parentheses, I put it in the front. 6 times x plus 1 times x plus 2. Then, for number 2 and 6, on the top and the bottom, I can try to cancel 2 and 6. For number 2 and 6, I can try to cancel 2 and 6. I can divide both numbers by 2. If I divide both numbers by 2, 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Times s plus 1, s plus 2. That's the final answer.